Hello, I am Tomoto Minaga from NTT Corporation, Japan. I will present our research on the role of initial acceptance attitudes toward AI decisions in algorithmic recalls. First, let me introduce the concept of algorithmic recalls. This figure illustrates a typical example. Algorithmic recalls generally provides counterfactual explanations to overturn negative AI decisions. Such explanations help users understand why a decision was made and what actions are required to flip it. The ultimate goal is for users to accept the negative AI decision through recalls. To achieve this, recalls must be reasonable and actionable, which are two key indicators in the research area. This slide outlines user interactions in algorithmic recalls. AI first makes a negative decision and then generates recalls. Previous studies assume that if a recall is reasonable and actionable, users will accept the AI decision. However, it is important to note that this is merely an assumption, not an empirically validated finding. While this assumption seems plausible, perceptions of reasonability and actionability may be influenced by users' initial acceptance attitudes toward the decision before seeing the recalls. This aligns with prior findings showing that people with negative first impressions of AI systems tend to evaluate subsequent AI outputs more negatively. Thus, we formulated the research question 1: how do initial acceptance attitudes toward AI decisions affect perceptions of reasonability and actionability of subsequent recurses? Next, we examined how perceptions of reasonability and actionability affect users' final acceptance of AI decisions. Although previous studies assume this relationship, empirical evidence remains scarce. To address this gap, we investigated this through research question 2: how do perceptions of reasonability and actionability affect final acceptance attitudes toward AI decisions? Finally, we analyzed changes in users' acceptance attitudes before and after receiving recalls. If attitudes shifted from negative to positive, the recalls likely possesses desirable properties that facilitate acceptance. Conversely, if attitudes shifted from positive to negative, the recalls likely has undesirable properties. By addressing research question 3, which types of recurses change acceptance attitudes from negative to positive or vice versa, we aim to identify which types of recurses improve or hinder users' acceptance, providing insights for recurse design. To examine our research questions, we conducted a user study using an automobile loan scenario. Participants were asked to imagine applying for an auto loan amounting to one-third of their annual income, visiting a financial institution, and submitting their profile data for screening. The AI system then notified them of their loan rejection. At this point, participants evaluated their initial acceptance attitudes by responding to the question, "Do you accept this decision on your loan application?" on a 7-point scale. Next, participants received recurses. An example is shown on the right. Recurses were generated based on participants' profile data and consisted of 16 items. The current profile represents the participants' submitted data, while the ideal profile corresponds to a counterfactual example. The differences between these profiles were presented as AI-generated suggestions. In this example, the AI might suggest if your job title were higher, if your remote working hours were longer, and your English proficiency test score were higher, your application would be approved. Counterfactual examples were selected from a pre-constructed profile database. For details on the rigorous computation process, please refer to section 3.2 of our paper. Upon receiving the recalls, participants evaluated its reasonability and actionability. For reasonability, we ask, do you consider the AI system's proposed plan a reasonable explanation for the rejection of your loan application? And for actionability, we ask, how difficult or easy do you find it to implement the AI system's proposed plan? Participants responded to these questions on a 7-point scale and provided open-ended responses for their evaluations. Finally, participants indicated their final acceptance attitudes by answering, having seen the AI system's proposed plan, do you now accept this decision on your loan application on a 7-point scale? This slide presents the results for research question 1. Both figures have insurance acceptance attitudes on the x-axis. The y-axis represents perceived reasonability in the left figure and perceived actionability in the right figure. Using generalized additive models, we found a positive association between insurance acceptance attitudes and perceived reasonability or actionability. As expected, the more negatively participants initially perceived the decision, the less reasonable and actionable they found the recourse, and vice versa. Next, this slide shows the results for research question 2. Both figures have final acceptance attitudes on the y-axis. The x-axis shows perceived reasonability in the left figure and perceived actionability in the right figure. From generalized additive mixed models, we found that perceived reasonability and actionability positively impacted final acceptance of AI decisions. That is, participants were more likely to accept the decision when they found the recourse reasonable and actionable. Notably, perceived reasonability had a stronger effect on final acceptance than perceived actionability. Finally, for research question 3, we identified 4 key themes by analyzing participants' open-ended responses on the recourse evaluation. In summary, users' acceptance attitudes shifted from negative to positive when recurses explained the cause of the outcome, clarified the decision criteria, proposed feasible plans within a realistic range, and considered fairness and real-world contexts. Among these, the third theme revealed a unique insight. Interestingly, participants were dissatisfied not only with highly difficult plans but also with overly easy ones. When recourse suggestions are too difficult, they are perceived as unrealistic plans. In addition, when recourse proposes too easy plans, participants feel that they should have been approved in the wrong screening, because such recurses present very small differences between the current profile and the counterfactual profile. Conversely, when recourse plans were neither too difficult nor too easy, participants expressed willingness to follow the suggestions using phrases like a little more or effort. As indicated by our results, the properties required for recourse to ensure user acceptance of AI decisions are highly subjective. So, it is essential to incorporate user preferences interactively and offer diverse options in recourse computation process. However, this raises an open question. What is the optimal level of interactivity? Since counterfactual thinking imposes a cognitive burden such as self-blame, we must strike a balance between interactivity benefits and cognitive load. To summarize, our study demonstrates that negative initial acceptance attitudes lead to lower perceptions of recourse reasonability and actionability, ultimately reducing final acceptance. However, recurses with specific characteristics can shift user acceptance from negative to positive. To develop AI systems that generate diverse recurses while incorporating user preferences, we will explore how to balance interactivity in recurse generation with the cognitive and emotional burden imposed by counterfactual thinking. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions about our results, data, analysis, or any other aspects, please feel free to ask.